Michael Walker wasn't just any CEO. He was a pillar of the community. His company, Walker Enterprises, provided jobs and opportunities for many families in the town of Oak Haven. But beyond his business success, Michael poured his heart and soul into giving back. He coached Little League, volunteered at the local soup kitchen, and quietly donated to numerous charities. He believed in building a better future for everyone, especially the children. He had a warm smile and a genuine way of connecting with people. Whether he was talking to a boardroom full of executives or helping a child tie their shoelaces, Michael treated everyone with respect and kindness. He was the kind of leader who inspired loyalty and admiration, not just because of his position, but because of his character. His dedication extended to his own bank, United Community Bank. Michael wasn't just a customer, he was the CEO. He believed in supporting local businesses and investing in the community's financial well-being. He saw the bank as more than just a place to deposit money. He envisioned it as a cornerstone of Oak Haven's prosperity. He regularly visited different branches, not just to oversee operations, but to connect with employees and customers alike. He wanted to ensure that everyone felt valued and respected. Little did he know, his next visit would be anything but ordinary. It would test his patience, challenge his values, and ultimately lead to a swift and decisive action. Every month, Michael made it a point to visit the Oak Haven branch of United Community Bank. This wasn't just a perfunctory visit. It was a ritual. He'd walk in, greet the tellers by name, and chat with the customers waiting in line. He genuinely cared about their lives and their experiences with the bank. He wanted to hear their feedback, both good and bad, so he could continually improve the services offered. On this particular Tuesday, Michael had a special reason for his visit. He was planning to withdraw a significant sum of money, $50,000, to donate to the Oak Haven Children's Fund. The fund was working to build a new playground at the local elementary school, and Michael was eager to contribute. He believed that every child deserved a safe and fun place to play. He had already called ahead to inform the branch that he would be making a large withdrawal. He knew that such a transaction required some preparation, and he wanted to ensure that everything would go smoothly. He didn't want to cause any inconvenience to the staff or other customers. As he walked into the bank, he noticed a new face behind the manager's desk. He didn't recognize her, and he assumed she was a new hire. He smiled warmly and walked towards her desk, ready to introduce himself and explain the purpose of his visit. Little did he know, this seemingly simple encounter would soon turn into a frustrating and disheartening experience. It was an experience that would force him to confront a harsh reality and make a difficult decision. "Good morning," Michael said, offering a friendly smile to the woman behind the desk.
"I'm Michael Walker.
"I spoke with someone earlier about making a withdrawal." The manager, whose nameplate read Ms. Jenkins, barely glanced up. Her expression was cold and unwelcoming. "And what account are you withdrawing from, sir?" she asked, her tone clipped and impersonal. Michael explained that he was withdrawing from the Walker Enterprises business account. He mentioned the amount, $50,000, and reiterated that he had called ahead. Ms. Jenkins' eyes narrowed slightly. $50,000 is a very large sum, she said, her voice laced with suspicion. "May I ask the purpose of this withdrawal?" Michael, though slightly taken aback by her tone, calmly explained that the money was for a donation to the Oak Haven Children's Fund. He even offered to provide documentation if needed. Instead of acknowledging his explanation, Ms. Jenkins leaned back in her chair and scrutinized him. "I'm going to need to see some identification, sir," she stated flatly. "And not just any ID. I need something substantial." Michael patiently presented his driver's license and his United Community Bank debit card. He thought that would be sufficient, especially since he had called ahead. But Ms. Jenkins was far from satisfied. She examined the ID with exaggerated scrutiny, as if expecting to find something amiss. Then, she looked back at Michael, her expression still skeptical. This was the beginning of a frustrating ordeal, one that would test Michael's patience and reveal a deeply ingrained prejudice. The obstacle had appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, casting a shadow on what should have been a simple act of generosity. Despite the rising tension, Michael remained calm. He understood that bank managers had a responsibility to prevent fraud and protect their customers' assets. He wasn't angry, just increasingly frustrated. He knew that if he lost his temper, it would only make the situation worse. He took a deep breath and focused on maintaining a professional demeanor. "Ms. Jenkins," he said, his voice even and measured, "I understand your concerns. However, I assure you that this is a legitimate transaction. I am the CEO of Walker Enterprises, and this withdrawal is for a charitable donation that I am personally making." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a copy of the Walker Enterprises business license and a letter from the Oak Haven Children's Fund confirming their fundraising efforts. He handed them to Ms. Jenkins, hoping that this would be enough to satisfy her. Ms. Jenkins took the documents, but her expression remained unchanged. She glanced at them briefly, then set them aside as if they were irrelevant. "These documents could be easily forged, sir," she said dismissively. "I need something more concrete." Michael felt a surge of anger, but he suppressed it. He couldn't believe that she was still questioning him, even after he had provided so much documentation. He knew that something more than just procedure was at play here. He suspected that her skepticism was fueled by something far more insidious, a deep-seated prejudice that he had encountered all too often in his life. But he refused to let it get the better of him. He would remain calm, professional, and determined to complete this transaction. He wouldn't let her prejudice stop him from helping the children of Oak Haven. The air in the small office was thick with unspoken tension. Michael could feel the eyes of the tellers on them, their hushed whispers adding to the already uncomfortable atmosphere. He knew he was being treated unfairly, but he refused to let Ms. Jenkins see him sweat. He maintained his composure, his posture erect, his gaze steady. "What else do you need, Ms. Jenkins?" he asked, his voice still calm but with a hint of steel. "I've provided my driver's license, my bank card, a copy of my business license, and a letter from the charity. What further proof do you require to verify my identity and the legitimacy of this withdrawal?" Ms. Jenkins hesitated for a moment, as if considering her next move. "I'm going to need to see your social security card," she finally said, her voice firm, "and I'll need to call the corporate office to verify the account information." Michael knew that asking for a social security card was highly unusual, especially after he had already provided so much identification. He also knew that calling the corporate office would likely take a significant amount of time, further delaying the transaction and causing unnecessary inconvenience. He was beginning to suspect that Ms. Jenkins was deliberately trying to obstruct him, not because of legitimate security concerns, but because of something far more personal. He could feel the weight of her prejudice pressing down on him, suffocating him with its unfairness. But he refused to be intimidated. He would continue to stand his ground, to assert his rights, and to demand the respect that he deserved. He would not let her prejudice win. He would get that money for the children of Oak Haven, no matter what it took. Ms. Jenkins picked up the phone, her eyes never leaving Michael. "Corporate office, please," she said, her voice dripping with suspicion. As she waited, she began to pepper Michael with more questions. "Where did you say this money was going again? The Oak Haven Children's Fund? Never heard of it." Michael patiently explained the fund's mission and its work in the community. He even mentioned some of the local leaders involved. But Ms. Jenkins remained unconvinced. "And you're sure this isn't some kind of tax evasion scheme?" she asked, her tone accusatory. "Large withdrawals like this often raise red flags, you know?" Michael's jaw tightened. The veiled accusation was the last straw. He had bent over backwards to cooperate, providing every document she had requested, answering every question she had thrown his way. Yet she continued to treat him like a criminal. The prejudice was no longer subtle. It was blatant and offensive. He glanced at the tellers, who were now openly staring, their faces a mixture of shock and embarrassment. He knew he had to put an end to this charade. He couldn't allow Ms. Jenkins to continue to disrespect him and undermine his reputation in front of his own employees. The tension in the room was palpable, a heavy weight pressing down on everyone present. He knew that the next words he spoke would change everything. The breaking point had arrived. The corporate office finally answered. Ms. Jenkins, still glaring at Michael, began to recite the account number and other identifying information. But then, she paused, a sly smirk creeping across her face. "Yes," she said into the phone, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I just need to verify the authorized signer on this account. This is a rather unusual name." She paused again, drawing out the moment, before adding, "The name is Michael Walker." She emphasized his name with a clear and deliberate emphasis, as if expecting the person on the other end of the line to react with surprise or disbelief. That was it. That single, condescending act was the breaking point. Michael had endured the excessive demands for identification, the dismissive attitude, and the veiled accusations. But to have his name, his very identity, weaponized against him in such a public and demeaning way was simply unacceptable. He stood up straighter, his eyes blazing with righteous anger. The calm facade he had so carefully maintained shattered, replaced by a fierce determination. He would no longer tolerate this blatant display of prejudice. He would not allow Ms. Jenkins to continue to treat him with such disrespect. He had tried to be patient, to be understanding, to give her the benefit of the doubt. But she had crossed a line. The game was over. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. The moment of truth had arrived. Michael took a step forward, his voice resonating with authority. "Ms. Jenkins," he said, his voice clear and firm, "I don't think you understand who you're talking to." He paused, letting his words sink in. Ms. Jenkins, still on the phone with the corporate office, looked at him with a mixture of confusion and defiance. The tellers behind the counter held their breath, their eyes wide with anticipation. "I am Michael Walker," he continued, "and I am the CEO of United Community Bank." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Ms. Jenkins' eyes widened in disbelief. Her mouth dropped open, and the phone slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor. The tellers gasped, their faces etched with shock and embarrassment. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the faint sound of the corporate office employee still talking on the other end of the line. Ms. Jenkins stammered, "But I don't understand." Michael ignored her protests. He turned to the tellers, his expression stern but fair. "Did you all witness Ms. Jenkins' behavior?" he asked. The tellers nodded in unison, their faces pale. They knew that Ms. Jenkins had gone too far, and they were now witnessing the consequences of her actions. The truth was out. Michael Walker, the man she had treated with such disdain, was their boss, the leader of their company. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and Ms. Jenkins was about to learn a very hard lesson. The revelation hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder that prejudice and disrespect have consequences. Turning back to Ms. Jenkins, Michael's expression was stern. "Ms. Jenkins," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument, "your behavior has been completely unacceptable. Your discriminatory actions and unprofessional conduct are a direct violation of this bank's policies and values." He paused, letting his words sink in. The tellers watched with bated breath, knowing what was coming next. Ms. Jenkins stood frozen, her face pale with fear and regret. "Therefore," Michael continued, his voice unwavering, "effective immediately, you are terminated from your position as branch manager of United Community Bank." The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. Ms. Jenkins' eyes filled with tears, but Michael remained unmoved. He had given her ample opportunity to treat him with respect, but she had chosen to act out of prejudice and ignorance. Now she was paying the price for her actions. "I will have security escort you from the premises," Michael said, his voice still firm but with a hint of sadness. He never took pleasure in firing anyone, but he knew that he had to send a clear message that discrimination would not be tolerated at United Community Bank. The tellers exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension and discomfort. Michael knew that he had to address them as well, to reassure them and to reaffirm the bank's commitment to diversity and inclusion. But first, He had to ensure that Ms. Jenkins left the building without causing any further disruption. The immediate consequences of her actions were swift and decisive. After security escorted a tearful and humiliated Ms. Jenkins from the bank, Michael turned his attention to the remaining staff. He could see the worry etched on their faces, the uncertainty in their eyes. He knew he needed to reassure them and reaffirm the values that United Community Bank stood for. "I understand that what you just witnessed was unsettling," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "But I want to assure you that Ms. Jenkins' behavior does not reflect the values of this bank." He paused, making eye contact with each of the tellers. United Community Bank is committed to diversity, inclusion, and respectful customer service, he continued. "We believe that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or background." He emphasized that the bank had a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind. He encouraged them to report any instances of prejudice or bias that they witnessed or experienced. He assured them that their concerns would be taken seriously and that appropriate action would be taken. He also reminded them of the importance of providing excellent customer service to everyone who walked through the doors of the bank. He wanted every customer to feel welcomed, valued, and respected. "I know that this has been a difficult situation," Michael concluded, "but I am confident that we can move forward from this and continue to build a bank that is a source of pride for our community." He hoped his words would reassure them and help them understand the importance of treating everyone with respect and fairness. The future of the branch and the bank as a whole depended on it. With the air finally cleared and a sense of calm restored, Michael turned his attention back to the original purpose of his visit. He asked one of the tellers, a young woman named Sarah, to assist him with the withdrawal. Sarah, still visibly shaken by the earlier events, quickly and efficiently processed the transaction. As she counted out the $50,000, Michael smiled warmly at her. "Thank you, Sarah," he said. "I appreciate your help." Sarah returned his smile, relieved that the ordeal was finally over. "You're welcome, Mr. Walker," she said. "It's an honor to help you with this donation." With the money in hand, Michael felt a sense of satisfaction. Despite the challenges he had faced, he had persevered and accomplished his goal. He knew that the $50,000 would make a significant difference in the lives of the children of Oak Haven. The new playground would provide a safe and fun place for them to play, to exercise, and to socialize. It would be a place where they could laugh, learn, and grow. It would be a symbol of hope and opportunity for the entire community. Michael imagined the children's faces as they ran and played on the new equipment. He knew that their joy would be the greatest reward for his efforts. He left the bank with a renewed sense of purpose and a determination to continue to make a positive impact on the world. The incident with Ms. Jenkins had been a setback, but it had also strengthened his resolve to fight against prejudice and injustice. The children of Oak Haven deserved nothing less. The donation would go on to provide countless hours of fun. The following day, United Community Bank released an official statement to the press addressing the incident at the Oak Haven branch. The statement was carefully worded but unequivocal in its message. United Community Bank is deeply committed to fostering a diverse, inclusive, and respectful environment for all of our customers and employees. The statement began. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind, and we take any allegations of prejudice or bias extremely seriously." The statement went on to explain that an incident had occurred at the Oak Haven branch involving a former employee. While the statement did not name Ms. Jenkins specifically, it made it clear that her actions were not in line with the bank's values and policies. "Following a thorough investigation, we have taken swift and decisive action to address the situation," the statement continued. "The employee involved is no longer with the bank." The statement also emphasized the bank's commitment to providing ongoing training and education to its employees on issues of diversity, inclusion, and cultural sensitivity. It announced that the bank would be implementing new policies and procedures to ensure that all customers are treated with fairness and respect. "We are committed to learning from this experience and to continuing to build a bank that is a source of pride for our community," the statement concluded. The public statement served as a clear message to everyone that United Community Bank was serious about its commitment to equality and justice. It was a promise to do better, to be better, and to create a more inclusive and welcoming environment for all. The community's response to the incident was swift and overwhelmingly supportive of Michael. Social media buzzed with messages of encouragement and appreciation. Local residents praised Michael for his integrity, his generosity, and his unwavering commitment to the community. Many people expressed outrage at Ms. Jenkins' behavior, calling it unacceptable and discriminatory. They commended Michael for taking swift and decisive action to address the situation. Some even organized a small rally outside the Oakhaven branch to show their support for Michael and to denounce prejudice and discrimination. The Oakhaven Children's Fund issued a statement thanking Michael for his generous donation and for his commitment to the children of the community. They emphasized the positive impact that the new playground would have on the lives of countless children. Even some of United Community Bank's customers expressed their support for Michael by closing their accounts at other banks and transferring their funds to United Community Bank. They wanted to show their solidarity with Michael and to support a bank that stood for fairness and equality. Letters to the editor of the local newspaper poured in, with residents sharing their personal stories of how Michael had positively impacted their lives. They described him as a role model, a mentor, and a true champion of the community. While the incident with Ms. Jenkins had been a painful experience, it had also served to unite the community and to strengthen their commitment to diversity, inclusion, and justice. The outpouring of support for Michael was a testament to the power of community and the importance of standing up against prejudice and discrimination. In the days that followed, Michael spent a great deal of time reflecting on the incident at the Oakhaven branch. While he was grateful for the outpouring of support from the community, he also recognized that the incident was a stark reminder of the ongoing challenges of racial bias and discrimination. He knew that despite all the progress that had been made, prejudice still existed in society, often lurking beneath the surface, ready to rear its ugly head at any moment. He understood that his experience was not unique and that countless other people of color faced similar challenges every day. He thought about his own journey, the obstacles he had overcome, and the sacrifices he had made to achieve his success. He realized that he had a responsibility to use his position and his platform to advocate for equality and opportunity for all. He reaffirmed his commitment to creating a workplace where everyone felt valued, respected, and empowered. He pledged to continue to invest in programs and initiatives that promoted diversity and inclusion. He also resolved to use his influence to challenge systemic inequalities and to fight for policies that created a more just and equitable society. He knew that the fight against prejudice and discrimination was a long and arduous one, but he was determined to never give up. He would continue to stand up for what was right, to speak out against injustice, and to work towards a future where everyone had the opportunity to reach their full potential, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or background. The incident had served as a catalyst, strengthening his resolve and deepening his commitment to creating a better world. To ensure that such an incident never happened again, Michael spearheaded the implementation of several new policies and training programs at United Community Bank. First, he mandated comprehensive diversity and inclusion training for all employees, from tellers to senior executives. The training covered topics such as unconscious bias, cultural sensitivity, and the importance of treating all customers with respect and dignity. He also revised the bank's customer identification policies to ensure that they were fair and equitable. He eliminated any requirements that could be perceived as discriminatory or overly burdensome, such as asking for a social security card unless absolutely necessary. In addition, he established a formal complaint process for customers who felt that they had been treated unfairly or disrespectfully. He made it clear that all complaints would be investigated thoroughly and that appropriate action would be taken to address any issues that were identified. He also created a diversity and inclusion council, composed of employees from all levels of the organization, to provide ongoing guidance and oversight on the bank's diversity and inclusion efforts. The council was responsible for developing and implementing new initiatives to promote a more inclusive workplace and to ensure that all customers were treated with fairness and respect. Finally, he implemented a system for monitoring customer service interactions to identify any potential instances of bias or discrimination. He wanted to ensure that all employees were held accountable for their actions and that any instances of misconduct were addressed promptly and effectively. These new policies and programs were designed to create a culture of inclusion and respect at United Community Bank. While the incident with Ms. Jenkins had been rooted in negativity and prejudice, it ultimately led to positive changes within both the bank and the community. Within United Community Bank, the new policies and training programs fostered a greater understanding of diversity and inclusion. Employees became more aware of their own biases and more committed to treating all customers with respect and fairness. The bank's reputation as a community leader was strengthened, and customer satisfaction increased. In the community, the incident sparked important conversations about race, prejudice, and equality. People began to examine their own attitudes and behaviors and to challenge discriminatory practices in their own lives. The community became more united in its commitment to creating a welcoming and inclusive environment for all. The new playground at the Oak Haven Elementary School became a symbol of hope and opportunity. Children of all backgrounds played together, laughed together, and learned together. The playground served as a reminder that despite the challenges, a better future was possible. Michael Walker continued to be a champion of the community, using his influence to advocate for positive change. He became a sought-after speaker on issues of diversity, inclusion, and leadership. He inspired others to stand up for what was right and to work towards a more just and equitable world. The story of what happened at the Oak Haven branch of United Community Bank became a powerful example of how even negative experiences can be transformed into positive outcomes. It demonstrated the importance of leadership, courage, and a commitment to doing what is right. It was a reminder that even in the face of prejudice and discrimination, hope and progress are always possible.